Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. It's early in the morning here. The sun is rising, and I'm so delighted to be making this video. For anyone who's been part of this channel for a while, I've been absent for a couple months, and maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit. First of all, I would like to respond to a question. So someone wrote, on one occasion, Bruno Groening actually said, and this person writes, you can hear it and read it in one of Bajani's videos, a certain case was hopeless. And I'm going to mispronounce this German word, aussichtslos, because that person had never had extremities, meaning limbs. And the person continues, I found that really puzzling because allegedly there is no incurable. How come then suddenly something should be aussichtslos? That is pretty inconsistent and one of the things I find problematic. Beautiful question. Thank you. So first and foremost, before I share my understanding of that, I need to be really clear. I am not a master. I consider Bruno Groening to be one of the best, one of the greatest masters to publicly walk here on this earth. And I'm not. Bruno Groening would say of him, he would call himself the little Groening. Well, if he was the little Groening, then what does that make me and you? He once said, just as, and I'm going to paraphrase here, just as I am a great sender of the divine energy, so are you a small sender. So it's not to put Bruno, like Bruno Groening is a mountain and I'm a piece of dirt. But he was a very, in my view, a being who is so wise that it's hard for us to fathom. So with all that said, I'll now do my best to share my understanding of this question. So one of the things that is often forgotten, in my view, in Bruno Groening's teachings is that he taught about reincarnation. And he also taught that all things, here's a direct quote of him, the state of the world is steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. So in the case of someone who was born without extremities, from a karmic point of view or from a point of view of reincarnation, there was something that soul needed to experience with not having extremities. And in this particular lifetime, those extremities weren't going to grow back. That's my understanding of what he meant by this. And he gave some specific examples. One example was of a child who was severely, you could say, mentally challenged to, like something like severely autistic, where had to be completely taken care of by the family. And Bruno Groening said that in that particular situation, that if the family can, it's a profound growth opportunity for that family. If that family can take care of a being like that, that it's a profound spiritual opportunity for growth. He also gave the example of Alfred Hosp. So when Alfred Hosp came to Bruno Groening, he had, he was on the brink of death. Maybe had a year left to live, maybe not, maybe 2 years, maybe not even that. And he had multiple healings, but not every condition was healed. And Bruno Groening said to him that Bruno Groening actually explained why he had so many health challenges. He said that it was the only way for you to fully devote yourself to the spiritual life in this lifetime was to have these physical challenges. And so in your next life, you'll carry forward all that spiritual growth. And then in a strong body, you'll be able to go out and do so much good. So the reason why I started off talking about this with a little disclaimer of like, I'm very small, is that these are very complex intricate situations, and it's going to be dependent on the individual and potentially even the family. So for this person who didn't have any extremities, any limbs, so, because we human beings, I tend to think small. I'm like, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to heal this. Whereas there's a reason for a particular illness that is potentially part of a whole spiritual journey that's not just limited to this lifetime. In the case of the person with no extremities, part of that condition is going to be a learning opportunity, not just for the person with no extremities, but for the family around them. So what I'm trying to say is that, as human beings, we like to make things simple. Like I was saying, tune in, get rid of bad, make things, heal things, like this really kind of like simple formula. Whereas life is vast and complex and has nuances. And someone such as Bruno Groening can look at a situation and see what theoretically everything that a person has done in this lifetime and other lifetimes. And Bruno would give examples of this. He gave an example of he was riding down the street on a bicycle with both of his children. His children actually were very spiritually awake, and he would say, "Oh, look, do you two see the temple that was there 5,000 years ago?" Because Bruno, my understanding is that Bruno's third eye was completely open, and he could, in essence, I won't say see everything, but see so much that we can't even fathom. So to circle back around to the original question, my understanding is that Bruno was saying this person is not going to heal this physical thing in this lifetime. And if you remember, with the couscous case, for those who have seen the documentary film, Bruno said, there's nothing I can do for this person. Does that mean the power of God is limited? And of course, Bruno never said it was about him. He would just pass along the power of God. Does that mean infinite power couldn't heal Emily Couscous? Does that mean that infinite God couldn't make that? So infinite God that created a universe vaster than we can fathom couldn't heal Emily Couscous or couldn't make this person's limbs grow back? I don't think so. I think the conditions weren't right for it. Now, the other implication is the wider societal implications. If that person's limbs were to grow back, can you think about the societal implications? On the surface, it sounds amazing, but that would be, in essence, you could say, unequivocal proof in the existence of God. And that would take away the need for faith. That would take away, you wouldn't just, what am I trying to say? For myself, I can get trapped in this kind of mechanistic thinking of if I do A, then B will happen. Whereas life is all 26 letters of the alphabet dancing at once with seemingly limitless other factors. So that's my response to that question. It's a beautiful question, and the essence of it really comes down to trust. Because why do people lose faith or not have faith? Because painful bad things happen or their prayers don't get answered. So again, this comes the idea of I can make things happen. I can make God do what I want. And Bruno would say that often. He said, don't demand a healing, but acquire it or strive for it. So there's kind of two paradigms. I'd say there's really three paradigms. One is a purely materialistic. There is no higher power. Like everything's just a bunch of atoms happening, rolling around. Life has no ultimate meaning. When we die, we're dead. Then there's a second paradigm that there is a higher power, but this higher power kind of just, God, whatever you want to call it, lets things happen that don't make sense and never will make sense. Like God's kind of uninvolved, maybe involved sometimes, but there's a third paradigm. And this is what Bruno Groening taught. And this is what I strive to live by every day. And it's not easy. And that is God is involved in every single molecule. Nothing happens that doesn't serve the good. To go back to Bruno Groening, the full quote is, it's a German proverb, whoever trusts in God's right hand has not built on sinking sand. And then Bruno continued, the state of the world is governed by God. Only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. That means that even in the most horrible, painful, challenging situation, the hand of God is there, and it's happening because it serves learning, which goes back to one of Bruno's fundamental teachings, that life is a school, and we're here to learn and grow. And that's why Bruno would say things like, only trust, and it will happen. He called us over and over and over again, not to trust only that nothing is incurable and nothing is impossible. That's a very small part of it, but to trust that everything, think of the worst thing. And I was just meditating on this morning, the worst thing that happened to me in my life. So I invite you to think of the worst thing that happened to you and see if you can reflect on the idea that even that, the hand of God was there, not as a punishment. Bruno Groening said God never punishes, but as a learning scenario. In my case, my assumption is that, first God knocked on the door. I didn't hear it. Then God knocked a little harder. I didn't hear it. Then God pounded. I didn't hear it. Then God shook me up, but I still didn't hear it. And that in essence, that the messages get more and more intense until you finally hear it. And I finally heard the lesson. I don't think I'll have to go through that again. I think I understand the lesson of the most painful thing of my life. And in seeing that, that allows me to trust that the state of the world is steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. Thank you so very much for your time, energy, and attention. Those things are very precious, time, energy, and attention. We have limited time, energy, and attention here on this earth, in these bodies. And so Bruno called us to make the best use of our time here. So let's sit. I'm going to sit for a couple minutes and tune in. You're welcome to join in. So as I said over here, my day is starting. So my prayer for today is, dear God, dear Bruno, please, for myself, for everyone who drops by this video and everyone in the world, to have a God-guided day, to be willing to keep turning to God and asking, what's the next right step? Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining in. Big love and a beautiful day to all of you.